8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff. Go Falcon. Go GPS.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
"30 seconds into flight, propulsion says the Merlin 1B engines are nominal. We're on trajectory and preparing to throttle down in preparation for maximum dynamic pressure." And we're heading into the throttle bucket as we power down the Merlin engines. And throttling back up now. M1D engines back up at full power.
Supersonic.
And we have gone past Mach 1. Waiting now for max Q call out.
The vehicle is experiencing maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Guidance engineer reports we're passing through the period of maximum aerodynamic pressure called max Q. From here on, as the speed picks up, the atmospheric density decreases and the loads are reduced on the Falcon 9 vehicle. Propulsion power continues to look good. The trajectory looks good.
MVAC engine chill started.
The engine chill in call out on the MVAC second stage engine indicates we've begun chilling that turbopump like we did with the first stage engines, getting ready for ignition of the upper stage engine. Now coming up in just over 30 seconds, the usual 3-sequence event that'll happen in rapid succession. Main engine cutoff will shut down the 9 Merlin 1D engines you can see glowing there in the night sky. Stage separation, and then we'll get startup of the second stage engine. Nice view from the ground camera looking up at the 9 Merlin 1D engines on the business end of the Falcon 9 first stage.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC startup.
So we've had a good separation. MVAC up on power. On the left screen, the first stage continuing to coast downrange as it begins to deploy those large titanium grid fins. Trajectory continues to look right down the middle.
Both stages are following nominal trajectories.
Guidance confirms we're on nominal trajectory with both stages.
Acquisition of signal, Maryland.
Maryland reports they've got signal from the second stage. Next event coming up is payload fairing separation.
Fairing separation confirmed.
A nice view from the camera looking forward. The GPS-3 satellite with the 2 payload fairing halves separating. Everything continuing to go well on this mission. 3 minutes and 42 seconds into flight. First stage continuing to coast to apogee, headed downrange. Second stage engine at full power. Everything's looking good with the MVAC engine. Right now, trajectory heading us to where the Bermuda ground station can hear us. We've heard the call out, acquisition of signal. Bermuda now getting the telemetry from the Falcon 9 second stage. So 4 minutes, 8 seconds into flight, everything going well on the flight of Falcon 9 with GPS-3.
Both stages continue to follow nominal trajectories.
And at T plus 4 minutes and 20 seconds, we're currently in the first of 2 planned MVAC burns. And we just passed T plus 4 minutes and 23 seconds, and that's actually when the first stage reaches apogee of 120 kilometers, almost 400,000 feet. At stage separation, the first stage velocity is about 2,200 meters per second, or 5,000 miles per hour. So right after stage separation, the first stage, still moving at such a high velocity, continues to raise its altitude as it coasts for a couple of minutes. Basically, the first stage almost doubles its altitude from stage separation, which occurred at about 69 kilometers or 226,000 feet, to when it reaches apogee, and then it starts its return back to Earth. And again, apogee is the highest point, or the furthest that it is away from Earth in the trajectory of the first stage. Now, the next major milestone that you'll be able to see on your screen is the first stage's entry burn. For the entry burn, we relight the center E9 engine, and then partway through we relight there on the east coast. So hard to see that first stage on the left-hand screen, but once entry burn begins, it should light up that screen. We should be able to see first stage pretty well.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there's that entry burn starting up.
Stage FTS is saved. Stage 1.
You could see the plume started off small and it got a little larger, and that is because we started with one single engine and added a couple engines for a total of 3 for this entry burn.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And that concludes the entry burn. Next up, we do add SECO, waiting for confirmation of good orbit as first stage returns to Earth.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Nominal parking orbit.
There's good orbit, and at the same time, we have touchdown of our Falcon 9 on Of Course I Still Love You. And again, that did happen at the same time, so we did have SECO and good orbit of our second stage.
Expected.
And there you can see on your left-hand screen, first stage landed on Of Course I Still Love You. This marks the 16th Falcon 9 landing just this year and the 64th of all time. And we're looking forward to seeing this booster take its second flight on the next GPS mission next year. Now, the second stage vehicle has now entered its first coast phase, which will last about 54 minutes, and we will light that MVAC engine for a second time shortly after T plus 1 hour and 3 minutes. So we're going to take a quick break, and as always, we leave you with an animation so that you can keep an eye on where that second stage is throughout the coast phase. So we'll see you back here at T plus 1 hour and 2 minutes.
Welcome back to the webcast of the Falcon 9 mission carrying GPS-3 Space Vehicle 4 for the U.S. Space Force. To recap what's happened so far this evening, we had a smooth on-time liftoff at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 2.5 minutes later, we separated the first stage from the second stage. The second stage then completed its first burn, successfully inserting the GPS with the second stage still attached into the planned parking orbit. Now we're coming up on the second burn of the upper stage engine in about half a minute. Flight computer is currently commanding settling thrusters to turn on and off. That's releasing nitrogen gas out of 2 thrusters in the back of the second stage that lightly pushes the stage, and that helps keep the propellant at the bottom of the tank right above the inlets to the engine's turbo pumps. As you can see from the ground track, we're passing south of the Tasmania ground station in Australia. Following the burn, we'll be headed in orbit up towards the Hawaii and Vandenberg ground stations. Awaiting for ignition.
MVAC ignition.
We've got ignition of the second stage engine. We're up on power. Now, the second stage will burn for 45 seconds. We're going to be adding over 2,000 meters per second to the speed of Falcon 9 before we shut it down for the second time. You can see from the velocity meter on the screen the speed clicking up. We're still at 419 kilometers in the same altitude in the parking orbit where we've been for a while. But this burn is going to bring us all the way up into the transfer orbit, and then shortly after that we'll separate the GPS satellite. Now we're coming up on shutdown number 2 called SECO 2, and this is the burn that will place GPS-3 space vehicle into the required orbit.
MVAC shutdown.
We've got SECO, MVAC shutdown call out. We're waiting for the orbit.
Nominal insertion orbit.
The guidance, navigation, and control engineer has called out a nominal orbit. Looking at the data, it's an excellent looking orbit. So second stage in a good orbit. GPS spacecraft is still attached to the Falcon 9 at this time. Now we're going to go through a series of events to get ready for separation. A little bit after we have finished a short coast, we are going to start a slow spin of the second stage. That's going to help stabilize the GPS satellite when it's released from the second stage. We also have to wait until the orbit takes us into range of the 2 Air Force satellite ground stations, one in Hawaii, one in California. We've got to make sure that the ground stations can be in contact with the GPS satellite before we release it. So all of this is going to take 24 minutes to get into the right situation at the right spin rate. And if that satellite separation is planned to occur at about T+1 hour and 29 minutes. So we're going to pause the commentary now during this coast, but we will come back just before planned separation in about 23 minutes. We'll be back with you at T+1 hour, 28 minutes, and 30 seconds.
Welcome back to our launch coverage of the GPS-3 Space Vehicle 4 mission for the U.S. Space Force. If you're just now joining us, we had an on-time launch at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by a successful ascent, stage separation. First stage came back and landed on Of Course I Still Love You, and 2 second stage engine burns. We have just one more major milestone coming up to complete today's mission, which of course is the deployment of the GPS-3 satellite from Falcon 9's second stage just about 15 seconds from now. Currently, the second stage is rotating to stabilize the GPS-3 satellite, and we're currently in view of those 2 customer ground stations on the western U.S. that John mentioned earlier that are necessary to connect to prior to deployment today. We've got a nice live view of that GPS-3 satellite.
Payload deploy confirmed.
And there confirms the deployment of the GPS-3 satellite as it's drifting away from Falcon 9 with a nice sunlit view there. This confirms a successful spacecraft separation, and that completes our primary mission, which will bring today's webcast coverage to a close.
And it's a great view of the GPS satellite drifting slowly away from the Falcon 9 second stage, and it's a great way to bring a webcast to an end. We'd like to thank the U.S. Space Force for entrusting us with today's GPS-3 Space Vehicle 4 mission. Now, we look forward to the additional GPS missions we will be supporting in the future. Special thanks this evening to the 45th Space Wing for range support, and to all of our viewers, thanks for joining us for today's mission, and have a good weekend.